Hey there, students! Today, I'm diving into one of the most intense periods in modern history, the Cold War. Buckle up because we're covering the start, the key events, and how it all wrapped up. The Cold War kicked off right after World War II in 1947. Picture this: two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, both emerging victorious from the war, but with completely different ideologies. The US stood for capitalism and democracy, while the Soviet Union championed communism and a one-party state. Tensions rose quickly. The world held its breath as these two giants vied for global influence. It wasn't a traditional war with battlefields and soldiers. It was a war of ideologies, spies, and proxy wars. One of the first major events was the Berlin blockade in 1948. The Soviets cut off all land routes to West Berlin, trying to squeeze the Allies out. But the US and its allies responded with the Berlin airlift, flying in supplies for nearly a year. Imagine that, planes landing every few minutes, around the clock. Then came the Korean War in 1950. North Korea, backed by the Soviets and China, invaded South Korea, supported by the US and United Nations forces. This was the first real military clash of the Cold War, ending in a tense armistice in 1953. The 1960s brought the Cuban Missile Crisis, probably the closest we ever got to a full-scale nuclear war. The Soviets placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US coast. After intense negotiations, both sides agreed to pull back. Phew, that was a close one. In the 1980s, things started to shift. The Soviet Union's economy was struggling, and Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms like glasnost and perestroika, aiming for more openness and economic restructuring. At the same time, the US, under President Reagan, ramped up military spending, pushing the Soviets to the brink. Finally, in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, symbolizing the end of the Cold War. 2 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved, marking the official end of this decades-long standoff. So there you have it. From the Berlin blockade to the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Cold War was a period of intense rivalry and incredible resilience. Thanks for tuning in, and keep exploring history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from the past. See you next time.